Hey, it's Vicky, and today I'm here to talk quarterly stats with you guys. I'm going to talk about how the second quarter of 2023 went for me in terms of my reading, what kinds of genres I was reading, what my favorite books were, and then I'm also going to touch on my goals and see how they are going for this part of the year. So let's dive in. So first, let's talk my reading goal number. I made a goal at the beginning of the year to read 75 books, and so far this year I have read 46, so I'm doing good. I'm definitely gonna hit that 75. For this quarter specifically though, I did read 22 books, so a little less than I did in quarter one, but the totals for that were 7,068 pages. I read 10 print books, 3 ebooks, and 9 audiobooks. So that's really interesting that audio and print were pretty split. Normally, print is more. So it's interesting that I was relying on audio more this quarter. In this quarter, I only had two 5-star reads, which has been a struggle this year, as you guys may remember. I don't know. I haven't been finding them as easily. I'm usually pretty stingy with my 5-star ratings anyway, but this year it's been particularly hard. So one of them though was Washington Black by S.E. Edogayan. This is a historical fiction about a young man named Wash. Well, his name is Washington Black, but he goes by Wash. And it's sort of a coming of age story. You meet him when he's a little boy and you see him grow into a man. And he is born during slavery. So when he's a child, he is enslaved. He is living on a plantation in Barbados. And you sort of see him, like I said, navigate life. And this was a fascinating read. I really loved it. It had a bit of a science-y sort of slant to it because Wash becomes an assistant to his master's brother, and his master's brother is a scientist. He's an inventor. He does all sorts of things where he's very interested in building things and how they work, and he's also very interested in studying nature and things, and so a lot of that is scattered throughout the book, and that was also super fascinating. So yeah, I absolutely loved this. It was a great read, 5 stars. I loved it. And then my other 5-star read for this quarter was one I just finished in June, and that was Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. And this one is more of a contemporary story. There's 12 chapters in the book. Each chapter focuses on a different character, but all of them are interconnected in some way, and they are all, for the most part, living in England, and so it is just about what their lives are like. And I was completely sucked in by this book. Every character, I was just totally interested in their story. It just had a really interesting writing style. And all of it, I loved it. It was a very surprising 5-star. I wasn't expecting that book to be a 5-star read, but it was fantastic. And then as far as genres go, it's interesting because normally I feel like I have more genres when I do these like genre breakdowns every quarter. And I mean, I still had 6 different genres I read from, but I feel like I normally have way more than that. I should probably mention too that I've decided to no longer differentiate or consider, I guess, middle grade and YA a genre, because it has been brought to my attention via Ashley from Bookish Realms. She did a whole video where she talked about this, how YA and middle grade and like picture books and things, that's not a genre, that's like an age category, and she's absolutely right. So from now on, I'm not going to be doing that anymore. I might do maybe a different stat where I break down the age, categories that I read from, but I kind of always threw all the middle grades together and said, oh, that's a genre. But really it's not. So I'm gonna stop doing that. So I didn't actually this time tally up like what I read in terms of middle grade YA and adult books, but I did do my genre breakdowns, but it's all sort of combined now. So in terms of my genre breakdown, it's kind of no surprise that the biggest genre that I read this quarter was horror. I attribute that a little bit to reading the Bram Stoker nominees, because that right there was 5 books that I don't know if I would have necessarily read all of those if I wasn't doing that video, but that contributed to, you know, reading so many. But yeah, 11 horror books followed by 4 mystery and suspense books. So that's quite a gap. But again, mystery and suspense, that's a genre I do typically like. But then the next one with 3 was sci-fi, which I don't normally gravitate towards. I mean, it'll pop up once in a while. But yeah, this time around I read 3 books that I considered to be sci-fi. So that's interesting. And then I read 2 historicals, 1 contemporary, and 1 nonfiction, which that number I wish was a little bit higher. All right, so now let's hop into the goals section. Like I said before, I had a goal this year to read 75 books, and I'm currently at 46, which is great. So I'm well on my way to meeting that goal of 75. No complaints there. I'm not worried about it. I had another goal to get my physical TBR down to 75, which sounds easy, especially because I started the year in the 80s, I think. But it's been a little more difficult than I thought, because I am I think steadily picking books from my physical TBR shelf. I'm also still purchasing books, which kind of affects the number. I feel like every time I read a couple of books, but then when I buy a couple of books, it cancels it out. So right now my physical TBR is 77. And I wish it was a little bit better than that. But it's been tough because there are books coming out that I want to buy. And so, yeah, still working on that one. Hopefully I am still able to meet that goal by the end of the year. I also had a goal to read a big book that I pick every year to read, and this year I picked Swan Song by Robert McCammon. I have not read this yet. I have read a big book already this year, technically. I read A Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth, which was a 1,400-page book, but I didn't pick that as my big book, so it doesn't really count. And I do still really want to read this. I think I'm going to pick it up in August. That's the plan. And then I started a project that I'm calling the Revisit Remix, where I take some books that have been on my TBR for 5 years, and I told myself that those books had to be read by the end of the year or I have to unhaul them. And I had 4 that I put on the list, and I have read 2 of them. And I'm currently reading a 3rd. So I'm currently reading The Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a fascinating book. It's great. I'm listening to the audiobook, and Cy Montgomery also narrates it, so that's always great. And so that means I have just 1 left to do for this project for this year, and that is This Scorched Earth by William Geer. It's sitting over there. I just forgot to grab it before I sat down. It is a Civil War story. So, and it's a bit of a longer one. I want to say it's like 600 or 700 pages. So yeah, it's another big book to tackle this year, but I will probably save that one for Q4. I will probably read it towards the end of the year. And then for 2023, I'm taking part in 3 different reading challenges. And I kind of wanted to just keep track every quarter of like where I was on those. So I'm taking part in the Books in the Freezer reading challenge, which is a challenge centered around reading horror books. I'm also doing the Buzzword reading challenge that I've done for the past couple of years. And then I'm also doing the 20 Books by Black Folks challenge. And so for those, for Books in the Freezer, I'm at 58%, which is good. So I'm a little bit further ahead than I had wanted to be. My goal was to be after Q2 to be at 50%. So I'm doing good there. I might finish that challenge before the end of the year, who knows. And then for the 20 Books by Black Folks, I'm at 50%. So I'm on track. And also for the Buzzword reading challenge, I'm also at 50%. So I'm doing really good on my reading challenges. It's looking like right now, I'm probably gonna complete them all. I also wanted to read 3 classics in 2023. In Q1, I read 2. But in Q2, I didn't read any classics. So I'm still at 2 for 3. But I mean, I only have 1 more to read to complete that goal for the year. So I'm pretty sure I'll be fine with that one. I also wanted to read 1 Kindle book a month, which means by the end of June, I should have read 6. And I am 6 for 6. So I'm doing good with that one. I fell a little behind in, I think it was April, because I'd started reading Full Throttle by Joe Hill on my Kindle, and it was a bit of a longer book. Well, it's a short story collection, but it took me a little longer, but I caught up in May, or was it June? I can't remember. Anyways, I got caught up, and now I am 6 for 6, so I'm still doing great with that goal. And then probably the goal that I'm doing the worst on, which is, it seems like this is always the case, I always make a goal to read 5 new to me Stephen King books, and I'm trying to read his books in chronological order. And I've only read 1 this year. I've read Hearts in Atlantis, and that one was a collection of novellas that were interconnected about the Vietnam War. And I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars, if I remember, but I haven't read any more. I'm planning to read Black House this month because I had wanted to read it in June. I didn't quite get to it, so it's on my July TBR. And then the next one, if I'm going chronologically, is to read another, like a short story collection by him called Everything's Eventual. This has 14 short stories in it. I have had this book forever. I can't believe it's finally time to read it. I bought it out of a clearance bin like a long time ago. So yeah, I'm a little behind on that goal. So I'm hoping to sort of get caught up and then read Holly, his newest release that comes out in September. I'm hoping to read that in September or October, and then read 1 more at the very end of the year to meet my goal for reading 5. So some of the books that I'm hoping to read in quarter 3 have to do with getting sort of caught up, one of which is reading Everything's Eventual to kind of help me with my Stephen King goal. So hopefully I will get through this and possibly another Stephen King in quarter 3. Swan Song is also on the docket. Like I said, August, I'm hoping to read this one. And then I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about my genre breakdowns that this quarter I only read 1 nonfiction book, and I don't know, I don't really like that. I kind of want to read more nonfiction in quarter 3, and I have a lot of really good nonfiction books on my TBR, especially my physical TBR, so it'll help me with my physical TBR as well. Just a couple that are sort of like jumping out at me when I look at my shelves is The Woman They Could Not Silence by Kate Moore. This is about a woman in the 1800s who was put in a mental institution by her husband because he didn't like her progressive ideas. He thought she was getting to be a little bit too, he didn't like her intelligence. He didn't like how she was kind of starting to speak up for herself. And so he had her locked away, even though she was not having any sort of mental issues. He just wanted her out of his hair, basically. And it's just about her story and how when she got there were quite a few women in there that were in a similar situation that did not belong there, but they were put there by their husbands. And yeah, so I read Radium Girls by Kate Moore a couple years ago, and it was a really good book. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I also want to read What Doesn't Kill You by Tessa Miller. And this is, I want to say this is a memoir. It's basically about Tessa Miller and her life being diagnosed with Crohn's disease and having a chronic illness that affects her everyday life, and just how that is, and how it's one of those diseases that may not be outwardly obvious, but it's something that affects her every day. And so I heard about this book on the Stacks podcast, I want to say, and that's why I picked it up. And also this cover is so beautiful. So yeah, I want to read this one. And then the other one is Chanel Miller's book, Know My Name. This one is about Chanel who was sexually assaulted, and the book is her telling her story, but it also deals with how victims in sexual assault cases are often treated by the media and also by the criminal justice system. I've heard such great things about this book. And her story is one that I remember, you know, reading about, hearing about in the media, and it was infuriating. And I just want to hear her story from her. So yeah, hopefully I'm going to read this in quarter 3. All right, guys, so those are my quarterly stats. Quarter 2, for the most part, went pretty good. I wish I had more 5-star reads in there, but hopefully quarter 3 will be better. But let me know down below some of your quarterly stats. I would love to know, what was your favorite read of the quarter? Are there any goals that you have reached at this point in the year? Are there some you're still working on? I would love to know. And that's it. I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will talk with you soon. Thank you so much for watching.